I lied. I'm going to give you a little more information. I forgot I was going to show you how to do a drop shadow. And while I do the drop shadow, I'll just quickly go over how to bring in a piece of furniture, like a chair, like this. You can actually mask it off here if you want, or you can actually bring it in first. I'm just going to bring it in first into my area. So I got a chair here. It's right up on top. Don't forget to rename it. And you do want to make the chair, you know, fit the actual location. It's a little small, so I'm just going to do a Command T and make the chair a little bit bigger so it looks a little natural. And don't forget to hold the Shift key if you want to keep it in proportion. That's probably about the right size. Alright, so first thing I want to do is mask it off. Pretty easy. Magic wand tool right up here. If you don't see it, go inside, find it. You could probably even use the quick selection tool. It would work just fine also. But grabs all the white, select, inverse, mask it off. Now I got the chair in there. A little bit of the white there still showing up, but who cares? And then, since the two are linked together, I can actually move it wherever I want to move it. So now I want to do a drop shadow. There is an effect, the effect's over here, that does have a drop shadow. It only works for things that, like, if this was mounted up against the wall, my shadow is going to be directly behind it. It would look really well in that case. Like, imagine I did nail this chair up on the wall. I can use the effect, and right over here they got a drop shadow. There's other things you can play with also that are kind of cool. You should definitely play around with the different effects, see what they do. I'm going to use the drop shadow, and this is the little window for the drop shadow. If I want to add other effects, these same effects that are listed here, only drop shadows checked, are the same things that are down here. So I could actually turn more of them on right now if I want to. But to see the interface for the different ones, you actually have to click on the different ones, and you can see all these different things kind of happening. If you ever went into styles, styles are right over here. These are all different combinations of these effects that are just saved for you. But we don't want any of these right now. We just want the drop shadow. Alright, so I'll turn these back off. So here's my drop shadow. You can kind of see a shadow already appeared. And let's run through this. You can actually apply a blend mode to the drop shadow. So I'm going to apply, let's say, color to it. And maybe we'll do multiply instead. Alright, you can see the black a little bit better with multiply. You can play around with the opacity and make it transparent. You can play around with the distance, how far away it goes. And there's the transparency. There's the angle that I want it at. You can see how it really only works with something like casting a shadow behind the object, because obviously these wheels should be right below this, so it doesn't work that well for this. But if you wanted to cast a shadow on something mounted on the wall, this effect would look great. You can play with the distance, you can play with the size of the blur, and the distance of the edge, I guess that's going to be. That looks like a really good shadow, except it's not really attached to the chair. So this is one way to create a shadow, and sometimes it might be useful. Right now it's not useful, so I'm going to hit cancel. So to create a shadow on this chair, what I'm going to actually have to do is make a copy of the chair that's all black and distort it on another layer. So first thing I want to do is I want to make the selection of just the chair again. So I'm going to go to the Magic Wand tool. I'm on the chair layer. I do not have sample all layers turned on because I only want to work with the chair. If I have sample all layers turned on, I click here, it's going to select everything it sees. I don't want that. Okay, I only want to select that white background that I know is on the chair because I didn't delete it. Right now the white's selected. I want the chair, so I go select inverse. Okay, now the chair is selected. Great. Unfortunately, I got all this other stuff selected too. I only want the chair. You see the chair selected and all the stuff that was outside the white. I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go over here to the third selection option, which says subtract from selection. And we use the marquee tool to get rid of this other stuff. Okay. Now there's always multiple ways of doing the same thing. I'm just showing you one way. I got rid of the top part. Whoops. Let's back up there. I was cutting off part of the actual chair. Make sure you don't do that. Got rid of the right part. Got rid of the left part. I'm just going to get rid of this right down here. Great. Now I just got the chair. I want to create a shadow. The shadow has to be on another layer. If I fill this in black right now, it's going to cover up my chair. So I'm going to create a new layer. Name it shadow. Okay. And it needs to be below the actual chair. And in this layer, I am just going to fill it in black. Use the paint bucket, got black selected with my color. I'm going to turn the chair off for a second so you can see it, and it just filled in black. It kind of went kind of transparent, and that's because my opacity for my fill is transparent. I'm going to bring it to 100% so you can see what it looked like. Now it's totally black. Okay, I know the shadow is not necessarily going to be totally black, but we're going to change that in a second anyways. I can turn my chair back on. I'm going to deselect, Command D, and in the shadow layer, I'm going to use the distort tool. We already used it once to help make these windows a little bit better. We're going to use the distort tool again to mess with the shadow. And I want to keep these lines parallel to each other. Keep it sort of rectangular, or is it a trapezoid, I think, where the sides don't have to be parallel, but something like that. Make it look like this, whatever that is. Alright, so that looks like a pretty good shadow. The bottom is sort of on the actual wheels. It's not perfect. I can see this part's a little off. Not much I can do about that. I can kind of move it so it looks like it's... That looks a little better if I keep it near the wheels. Maybe I can pull this part down. Pull this part down. And get it looking as best you can. That looks pretty good. It's not exactly perfect, but it's pretty good. Once I got that made, hit enter. And now I want to make it a little bit transparent because it's solid black on the actual ground. You don't want that. So for the shadow layer, there's a little opacity here. I can make it slightly opaque. That looks great. And that's a pretty decent shadow. You can actually add a blur to the shadow, make it look even more natural. The shadow layer has its own effects. Okay, and I can, let's take a look. Let's actually use drop shadow again. And I'm not going to change the direction of the shadow. I'm giving the shadow a shadow. But what I can do is spread that shadow below it out a little bit. And the size a little bit. That looks kind of interesting. Even the direction a little bit. That might actually help a little. But you know what? I don't like it. Never mind. Try something. If you don't like it, cancel. Another thing I can do on this same layer is I can actually blur it. I can come up here to my filters. We haven't really done filters yet, but there's actually a blur option. And I can try the different blur ones. I'm just going to do a blur, a normal blur. Kind of blurred it a little bit. Didn't do that much. Let's try blur more. Still not too much. And we want to zoom in, see if it's actually doing anything. Command plus zooms in. We're going to do that really quick. There we go. Alright, we're looking at the shadow. Okay, on the layer, we're going to go back into the blur. This is a pretty good one, Gasson blur. Alright, this is probably the one that's going to do it for us. Alright, so I'm going to increase the blur, and as long as you have preview, you'll see what it looks like in the actual image. And actually, that looks pretty good. I'm still kind of floating above the wheels, but it's not too bad. I'll pull it back just a little bit. Perfect. And odds are no one will actually ever realize that it's not perfectly lined up down there. There are ways of doing it, but this is actually just fine right now. So really, to make the shadow, the best way is to create a new, or the best way that I just showed you right now, is to create a new layer, make basically a black image of it, distort it, and add the Gasson blur filter to it. Okay? And that really is all I'm going to show you. I think I've showed you enough that you can really do a lot with what you actually know. And really just make this your own, make it really cool. And don't forget to put your name somewhere in the image, like right down here. And don't put it in a place that's going to make it actually look bad. You know, put it in a place that's going to look kind of cool. Alright? And that is it. Good luck.